So I'm here with Rennie Evans from Prospero. Rennie sent me an email recently after a webinar I ran on embracing technology to be much more productive in the office, and Rennie sent me an email which I thought was really fantastic about the way he'd changed his entire working culture now to adapt to the technology that's available to us these days. So Rennie, would you tell me a little bit more, just for the benefit of the camera, what it is that you emailed me and how you've changed your working culture?
Well, we went virtual 2.5 years ago, and I have to say it wasn't planned. Like all some of these best ideas, it's fortunate, but our landlords at the time had an offer for the serviced office that we were occupying for the whole floor, so they closed it and gave us 3 months notice. So we started to look around at alternatives within their portfolio, and we started talking at the team about the possibility of going virtual, and that's what we decided to do. We took an office in Bruntwood's portfolio where they provide telephone answering and post, which they forward on to us, and we all work from home, meet up once a week, and we said we'd give it 6 months, and I think it was about 15 months before anybody even raised the subject we were going to review this. Everybody was enjoying it. We meet up. We made a very big point at the time of meeting up once a week in a mutually convenient cafe, so that we maintain obviously the contact and what's going on in the firm and what we're going to do about business development. So it's worked well, and everybody enjoys it. So
Brilliant. Okay, so tell me, how does your setup differ from maybe a young startup firm that's working from their spare bedroom?
Only that obviously we've got a team of half a dozen people, so they're working each from their own houses. If they're not at clients, if they're working at clients, whether they're doing a set of accounts or an audit, doesn't change. But when they're not working at clients, then they're working from home. Occasionally we'll get together if there's some particular issue that we need to discuss, whether it be at one of our houses or to say at this cafe that we tend to meet at. But yeah, so if we bring somebody new in, all we need to do is to give them a laptop, a mobile phone and a multifunctional device, and away they go. So
okay,
and that's coming back actually from when we started. We were in the enviable position, I suppose, because we decided to go paperless, and we were working in a hosted desktop environment, which we still do. So all of our software applications and all of our client data's hosted in the cloud. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can be working if you wanted 24/7. So, and in fact, I was in a very lucky position. We went out to New Zealand just over a year ago to see my stepson and family who had emigrated there, and because we went for 5 weeks, I had to take my laptop. I couldn't be away for that long without any work and contact. So, and I was working from New Zealand just as if I'd been sat here or in our office in Manchester, because we can actually hire rooms in the office in Manchester, but literally by the hour when we need them. So it works fine.
So from an overheads point of view, that's...
Yeah, I mean our office rent for the virtual office is £115 a month plus VAT, and that's it. We get costs for forwarded on the post and forwarded on telephone calls, but it's never more than £50 a month, so it's a very, very low overhead base.
So I suppose really what differentiates you from maybe a spare bedroom accountant is that your office address is actually a professional building as such, and things are just forwarded on to you. Yeah,
I mean Lowry House is right in the centre of Manchester off Spring Gardens. It's actually the Institute of Directors have moved into Lowry House, and they have a suite on the ground floor, which we also have the ability to use. So you can hire up to, I think the main boardroom is 18 people with all the modern media cons in it. So we've used that once before for a client event, but it's not a fixed cost. It's there when we want it by the hour.
Okay, brilliant. So how transparent is this to your clients?
Totally. Yeah, totally. To be honest, we never really had many meetings where clients would come into us anyway. previously to moving into this virtual position, we had the office on number 1 Portland Street in Manchester, which is just off Piccadilly Gardens, so very central. But we very rarely had clients come in there for meetings. If we do have meetings and they want to be in the centre of Manchester, we can still hire a room by the hour. So that, you know, the clients are just not concerned about it really. So.
Do you get the situation where a client wants to bring you a Tesco's carry bag full of receipts, or is everything digital?
That's not our target client. You know, our client profile of our ideal client is, we're looking at businesses in the 1 to 10 million turnover level. So we wouldn't really want to take on a job where incomplete records job. We're trying to move a lot of clients onto cloud accounting. We've become partners in Xero, although I have to say we're fairly recent adopters, and also Receipt Bank, and we're also accountant partners in Sage. So we're using all the applications, but not for incomplete records jobs. That's, you know, for us that's a thing of the past. So.
Yeah. I'm sure many accountants will be wondering, well, how do you monitor the performance? As you know, I'm a great advocate of working from home, but it's still a bit of a, I suppose, a mindset challenge for many accountants out there. How do they control the workflow?
To me, it wasn't a cultural change, because obviously I've come from a background of working for very large firms. So I trained with what became Touche Ross, now Deloitte in Manchester, and I went to work abroad in Kenya for 4.5 years for name's going Panel Kerr Foster, or the local firm of Panel Kerr Foster. Came back to Touche Ross in London and then worked for Grant Thornton. So I'm used to the big firm, and in a big firm your team very rarely come into the office. They go from one job to another, whether they're doing audit or accounts or some special work. You know, they might come in to the office late on a Friday afternoon to drop one set of files off and collect the next, but that's, you know, pretty much really their involvement. So, and as a manager stroke partner, you're monitoring the output. You know, if somebody's given a job to do, you know, whatever it is, 2 weeks, and at the end of the 2 weeks they say, well, I'm only 25% of the way through it, then you know there's an issue. Well, hopefully you'd know before the end of the 2 weeks, but so you are monitoring against output. And I've always said to my team, I don't, you know, if you're working from home, I don't mind if you don't start. I mean, our official hours are 8:30 till 5:30, so it's a 40-hour week. But you know, I say if you need to, whatever, you know, Laura's got a little baby, so if she needs to start at 10 o'clock for whatever reason, and as long as she gets the work done, that's what I'm more interested in, and obviously to the right standards. So we still, we still do full review, but we're doing it online. Everything's saved digitally, and so it's just a matter of reviewing an electronic file rather than a paper file.
So, monitoring progress from an accounts production point of view, you can see the results. What about the admin side of it?
Well, the admin side works very much the same. Post comes in, it gets scanned, it goes into a temporary folder, so the client service manager or I can pick it up, do whatever needs doing with it, and then it gets filed in the client folder and the specific folder for that subject. You know, if it's to do with the accounts, it gets in the accounts folder. If it's to do with tax folder, etc. And then the original documents get shredded. Similarly, all the post that goes out, all the emails that goes out, a copy is filed to the electronic filing cabinet. So there's a complete record there, basically, of all of the client information. So you can go into a client and you can look in, starting from the top, you know, accounts file, audit file, business advisory file, corporation tax file, etc., all the way down. So.
And all of the phone calls are taken by the office that you rent?
Yeah, obviously all the clients have got our mobile, so they'll sometimes ring on a mobile. I have a study here and have a direct, have a separate line for that, so I give it out to some of the bigger clients, so sometimes people will call me on that. Right. And Judith, my PA, who comes in, will sometimes take the calls if I'm tied up. Yeah, so it's wherever we are really. If the phone comes into the office, usually try and put it, if it's for me, they'll try and put it through to me. If I'm not available, I'll put it through to one of the rest of the team. But it's really no different to if you had a fixed office. The fact that we are separated from it, well, I live 22 miles from the office. Pip lives, probably she's the closest, she's probably 12 miles at Altrincham. Laura's about 35 miles out at St Helens, so it doesn't really matter where you are, nobody knows the difference, it's seamless. And that's the big benefit of technology today. I mean, you can be sat anywhere.
What do you use to collaborate as a team?
We use Skype, so I have a Skype call once a week with the 2 client service managers, so we're reviewing actually all the client work. And then we have, as I said before, we have a weekly team meeting at this cafe in Knutsford, which is more about maintaining the team spirit and camaraderie. So we're looking at what we're doing in terms of business development and ideas.
And some may worry that because of the independent nature that you've got your team working in, what's to stop them from maybe just going off and doing this stuff alone? What would you say?
I don't think there's anything different. So if they're working in an office, that they can go off and do work alone. So they can see obviously the model and how cheap the model is relatively to set up, but it's no different if you're working in an office really. And that's the way technology's gone. It does enable relatively cheap startups. If I think back to 1988 when I started my first accounting practice, and I started it from a back bedroom, just on my own, and I had obviously all of the software then on a PC in the back bedroom and a filing cabinet with the paper files. It's the same model, but it's just gone digital.
A question that occurs to me: when you're in your fixed office, you can walk out at that whatever time it may be, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. But when you lock that door, you can't hear the phone anymore. If they've got your mobile, they've got a house line, they know your address. Do you find that your personal time is kind of embarked on? I'm not sure that's the right word. Encroached.
I remember actually when I first started the practice, my first practice back in 1988, and I had the back bedroom, and in those days, because we had fax machines, and if I ever heard the fax machine going off, I'd be straight up the stairs. But I suppose in those days you're anxious trying to build up a business. Now if you get a ping of an email on your mobile, to be honest, in the evening now I just tend to ignore it. Occasionally I'll sit and flick through them, but and most clients don't really phone out of hours. You get the occasional one if it's something that's very urgent. So, but
if you were going to give your mobile out, that would happen regardless of an office anyway, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay. So from a stress point of view, I mean, commuting is one of the biggest causes of stress, regardless of getting into the office. So, I mean, how do you guys feel now? It's been 3 years now, hasn't it, since you made the move?
Well, when we were in number 1 Portland Street, bearing in mind we were a 8:30 start, I used to leave home from here at about 7 o'clock. And if I left here at 7 o'clock, I'd be into the office for about 10 to 8. If I left it 15-20 minutes later, I'd be lucky to get in the office for 9 o'clock. The traffic builds up that quickly, so from here I've got to go through the way I used to go, through Wilmslow, under the airport tunnels, onto the M56, straight down the M56 onto Prince's Parkway into the centre of Manchester, and it's, that you're in a queue virtually from the moment you get to Wilmslow, if you leave at sort of 20 past, 7:30. So, and then coming home, again, I never used to leave the office until 6:30 at the earliest, because otherwise again you just sat in traffic for an hour and a half. And of course those are the good days. If there's ever an accident and the traffic's backed up, and it's all part of a motorway network, the M60, M61, and the M6 is not that far south, so it doesn't take much for the traffic to be absolute chaos. And for Laura coming from St Helens into central Manchester, that was even worse, even further. Now my commute is 2 seconds from the kitchen to the study, and you've made the journey. Not very stressful. So I acquired 2 dogs a couple of years ago to make sure that I started taking some exercise, because I'd finally given up playing five-a-side soccer. So in the morning I'm up and out with the dogs, usually at about 7:15, and I'm walking. Sometimes I'll walk up Pexhill Road and I see all the cars doing their commute, and I think, I don't miss that. Occasionally I still have to go into Manchester, that's fine. When I do, I tend not to do it, obviously first thing in the morning. I can do it at time to suit, really, unless anybody wants a meeting first thing. But I have done it recently and I don't miss it, certainly.
Yeah, but they're far and few between.
Yeah, and you see people, you're doing it every day, over a period of time. It's just
just an hour each way. You're looking at 14 hours a week of wasted life, really, aren't you?
Well, you are. Yeah, I know. When you think how much time you do spend. I mean, when I came back from Kenya, I worked in London and lived just south of Reading, and my commute. Then originally, I used to drive down to Reading Station and get the Bristol Paddington and then get on the tube at, I think it was round from Farringdon to Farringdon, and then walk up to Fleet Street where the office for Touche Ross was. That was an hour and a half on a good day each way, and there weren't many good days. You rarely got a seat, even on the express train from Bristol to Paddington. You probably stood up 2 in every 3 journeys, and this is 1986. So, but yeah, the amount of time we all waste commuting is horrendous.
What are the key piece of technology then that you'd recommend somebody needed to have in place in order to make this work?
Cloud. I mean, when I first, the reason I actually went into cloud originally, and I'd been going 6 months, and I had a 6-desk office in number 1 Portland Street, and I could see already the filing cabinets mushrooming with client files. And when I had my previous practice before I sold it to Bentley Jennison, I think by the time we finished we were paying out something like £12,000 a year in external storage for old files, and I thought, I cannot go down this route again. So it was actually it was physical space and costs. So I started doing quite a bit of research into cloud accounting and reading about it, and there was quite a lot about the Institute of Chartered Accountants at the time had on it, and there was a lot of doom and gloom merchants who were saying about security, but I mean, it was already apparent even back in 2010 that that's the way the world was going. So I've always tended to be an adopter of technology, and that's the way we went. So the only files we keep are permanent files, where we keep hard copies of wet signed accounts and tax returns, but I think even we're just looking now at moving away from that, because you've got digital signing of accounts, and we use Digita for that, and they have a portal where you can do that. So I think cloud accounting is certainly applications is certainly the biggest thing that made working from home easy. So.
And of course, every accountant out there has probably got access to all of the stuff already, making the need for an office less and less, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we were talking when we could set up an office. I mean, we're office is centre of Manchester, but we could set up theoretically set up an office in Chester with. Using, I think Regis have serviced offices there, virtual office. You can have one telephone, so it all still focuses in. I think the Regis office, without post going there, was £19 a month, and you've got the full use of that. If you need a meeting over there, you've got the full use of their offices. So you could set up an office network, really.
Like you're nationwide.
Yeah. So technology is just changing the way we work, isn't it? So, but I can remember. This must be going back into the 90s, I think, and when we were members of RAM 1, and they were talking then about a firm in Australia that had got operating their office on a hotel basis. So if you wanted to basically come into the office, you booked a desk, and they used to roll out your trolley to your desk, and that was the start of technology. It's the same sort of idea. So rather than having a big office with desks for everybody and a fixed cost.
Just flirting back then to the very early days of doing this. As you explained, your lease was running out. You'd been thinking about doing this leading up to that, presumably. How did your team embrace it? I was talking recently about personal profiles, and actually some people like to be around other people and find that they can separate their life from work much easier by doing that. Did you find that was a challenge for you? We
were quite a small team. There was some concerns about being separate and working effectively in an isolated pod, which is why we made this commitment to meet up once a week. And we used to, I have to say, we've not been great at it more recently, but initially we used to have a team outing every sort of 3 months, where we'd all get together socially, and that's something we perhaps need to refocus on. But I think all the team at the time, took to it very, very easily. The only thing I think the girls missed was, obviously we were in the centre of Manchester, just off Spring Gardens, so their lunch times they were going down Market Street, shopping. So certainly Laura, my PA at the time, certainly missed that, I think. But I don't think anybody missed the commute. And say if there's periods when you're in the when we were in the office then, if it's, for instance, I think not long before we took the decision, I was in the office for about 2 weeks on my own, because the rest of the girls were out working at clients. And you think, we weren't paying a huge amount of rent even there. It was a serviced office provision, but I think it was costing us about £1,000 a month. And you think, what am I paying this for?
Who develops new business for Prospero?
Primarily me, I suppose. Obviously the two girls who are client service managers have got a focus. Judith, my PA, is involved. We have a marketing consultant who we use a sort of a day a week.
Right.
It does stuff for us on social media.
And you'll just presumably hand those out accordingly, will you, the new clients, and place them straight with the client manager? Yeah.
Depending on what the work is, obviously. If it's more business advisory, then I tend to get more involved in that. But yeah, I'll usually try and get one of the girls involved. It's to help them develop. Obviously, they've all been down to AVN for training courses on PMI, and the one you did on business consulting, and they've been on the conferences.
And you're delivering all of those services in just the way that anybody else with an office would do as well?
Absolutely, yeah. It really doesn't make any difference.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I'm not sure that there's any other questions I can ask. Would you recommend this to, I suppose one final question is there a size limit, do you think, of firm before this is not a good idea?
Good question. And I would say perhaps the biggest issue we've got is perhaps recruiting new members, because obviously we were a small team, and if you were, say, a team of 15-20 people looking to go down this route, I think you need to do some planning as to whether you're going to, if you want all your team to come with you, whether you're going to take all the team with you. And I think the point about maintaining the team spirit, regular meetings, is important. Or to give them the options to be able to, if it's perhaps a training thing that they perhaps if you have internal training, that you have an office that you can just rent for an hour. So we can rent an office in Lowry House, which seats 6 people, big circular table like this. I think it costs us £45 for half a day. So it's cheap. And it's not fixed. You just use it on the half days you want it, or you can literally rent them by the hour. Like if we were doing an interview, they have a 3-person room there that you can literally hire by the hour. So.
Right. And your clients are spread?
Our clients are spread all over the northwest, from Ellesmere Port down. I think our furthest south at the moment is Congleton, which is not far from here, but it's 30 miles from the centre of Manchester, up to Bury, Bolton, Stockport area. So they're literally all over the northwest. So that comes back to a lot of the clients followed me from when I had my previous practice, and we had offices in Chester, and we had an office in the centre of Manchester. So, but you can certainly, I mean, you've only got to look at the banks. If you speak to a commercial bank manager these days, they're working with laptops, and they're largely, if they're not out seeing clients, they're working from home. Very rarely do they have a fixed office these days. I mean, I can remember Barclays moved to that sort of format sort of 10 years ago. And so it's not just the accounting profession that's moving that way. It's the professions generally.
Well, I mean, reading a book, The Entrepreneur Revolution, more and more people are just walking away from corporate life and setting up their own small micro niche type business, working from home, and they're generating certainly more than a typical living. Not with the overheads, and might not have got quite the lifestyle that they want, because they're probably still working on the laptop late at night. But
well, that's down to discipline, isn't it?
It is, yeah, exactly.
And separating out your personal life and your business life.
Yeah. But again, whether you've got an office or not, that happens, doesn't it?
Well, it does, yeah, because you end up just staying later in the office, and then you've still got the commute home. Whereas now I switch my laptop off, and then my wife would probably say that he's talking rubbish because he still works at ridiculous hours. But perhaps that's just me.
Well, from my own point of view as well, I mean, I haven't worked from home as much as I would typically, just recently, but if I am working from home, I'm an early bird anyway. I'm usually up at 5:30. So regardless of whether I'm in the office, I'll probably start working at 6.
Yeah.
And if I'm working from home, I'll maybe do a bit of work, and then I'll go and do something else.
Yeah.
It used to be that when I was on my own many years ago, I'd go and do the washing and sort that out, peg it out, come back with a bit more work, go and do something else in the garden, whatever, and just break up the day. And you can do that when you're at home. You can't at the office, can you?
Well, it's a lot more difficult, isn't it? A lot more difficult.
So just to sum up from my point of view, the key benefits to me, and please add to the pot if you need to, you got a better lifestyle because you're not sat in a car commuting, and you've got the pleasure of working from a fantastic location, which is your house. Stress is reduced again from the lack of commuting. You've not got the overheads, fixed overheads of an office. What other?
I think immediacy of being able to look at a client file. I mean, don't get me wrong, even with electronic filing, documents can get put in the wrong client file or the wrong folder, but it's the immediacy. I mean, on the phone to a client this morning, and they've just had a big tax rebate, and I was able to, from an R&D claim, and I was able to look back on the file going back, back to 2009. Immediately, just by a few clicks. Now, if you're on a paper file, it's likely your files have been archived. They might even be in storage like we used to have. So it's the immediacy of having all that information to hand. If you're a firm that's obviously not adopted it, it's quite a big thing to go down the process of scanning and shredding files and storing. But it's probably an exercise worth doing. But again, needs some careful planning.
Obviously my big thing at the moment is around Avon Excellence, isn't it? Not having an office, do you think that impacts the ability to achieve that? I don't know how much focus you've given to that.
I've looked at the Avon Excellence a lot, and I keep looking at it and think, yeah, we've done that, but we don't have a system for going through it and ticking them off. I've not had the conversation with Judith yet, but she's quite a meticulous type, and I wanted to get her involved in that. And she's only been with us 4 months, so, but she's got a good back. She worked for a nuclear engineering company before coming to us, so totally different background. Couldn't be much different, could it? But yeah, I think. I can't, from what I can remember of what's in the Excellence handbook, I don't think there's much in there that is. I can't think of anything in there that would stop you delivering on that by being virtual.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been great just to see your setup as well, and how you work. So thank you very much.